Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on communication for personal and professional success, organized by Applied Science and Humanities Department of Parul Polytechnic Institute, Parul University. The main agenda of this webinar is to learn strong communication skills which help in all aspects of life, from professional life to personal life, and everything that falls in between, as it allows other and yourself to understand information both accurately and quickly. I, Vaishali Nathwani, would like to introduce today's guest speaker, Hanifa Manon from Canada. She is a grief recovery and brain retraining coach through mindfulness, meditation, and energy work. She is early retired naturopathic doctor, having practice of 21 years. She has completed her BSc in neuropsychology from University of Alberta and spent 2 years at McMaster University and completed a 4-year program to become a naturopathic doctor. She started her career in 1993 as a volunteer at Seniors Extended Care Center and Home Health Care Provider in Edmonton, Alberta. She has been teaching assistant for physical and clinical diagnosis at CCNM and also worked as guide for minor surgery and Asian medicine at CCNM. She was also clinical examiner and exam writer at Provisional Naturopathic Licensing Board. She has presented lectures at International Forum for Psychoanalytic Education, OANT conferences, International Dermal Institute, Children's Aid Society, Ministry for Health, and many more. It's a pleasure to welcome you, ma'am, and you can start with the session.
Thank you so much for your beautiful introduction. I am happy to meet you all. So whoever is attending today's live session, thank you so much for attending, and whoever is seeing this presentation later on, thank you too. I just would like to tell you that this is going to be about communication for personal and professional success, as was introduced, and thank you, Parul University, for inviting me to present to you today. So I can tell you that I would love to make sure that we're all starting on a really calm place, right? So at a calm place. So if you would take your hands, put them together, and let's just take one complete cleansing breath. So take a breath in and out. And this will make sense as we go on. Okay, so words matter. This is what this presentation is all about, is to make sure that you understand that your words matter. The things you say matter. And I wasn't sure if the people who would be listening would be more interested in about the words that they speak at home or the words that they speak professionally, but in both locations, your words matter. So I thought I'd get you to think a little bit about, when do kids start learning words? When did you learn words? How did you learn? And so you might start thinking, just think for a minute, how long did it take? So, some people are really proud of, oh, I learned words when I was 2. I was only 1-year-old when I started learning words. I want you to realize that even today, you'll have emotions and feelings, and then you'll speak words. So you'll have emotions and feelings. So if you think about even children, you can see that if they're really upset, suddenly they're like, even when they can't speak, right? They're going to have some sort of presentation of they're not happy. Their facial expression will change, and they're going to make sure that they're going to try to speak it. And as we grow up, we do something very similar, except we hide many times our feelings before we express them. So as you can see here, emotions and feelings then lead to words. So we feel emotions and feelings first, and then words. And how do we feel emotions and feelings? So you would think, oh, I feel it in my heart, or I feel it in my back, or I feel it in my muscles. But no, we feel it in our mind. We're aware of our feelings and emotions, then we learn words. So it's thoughts, then words, and then the action. So someone might throw something if they're upset, or someone might hide when they're upset. So this is how words matter, and we're picking these things up quite early. So I wanted to show you about emotions and words. Again, our brain understands the emotions behind words, the feelings associated with them long before it understands language. So if you think about infants are actually understanding facial expressions and the emotions that are presented by their caregivers or their parents or their siblings way before they learn the actual words that they're speaking. So they don't understand the words, but they understand the emotion related to those words. So if a parent is speaking to them in an angry tone and they have a certain expression on their face, the child starts understanding what mad means, right? So that sort of idea. We start understanding these sorts of emotions and the connections with facial expressions and actions and feelings way before we actually understand language. So that's right in infancy. But I thought I'd let you see what kids are reading and certainly what we read in emotions. And if you can see all of these expressions, these are just generalized expressions, right? So you can see there's angry, sad, there's a happy surprise, there's a confused, there's a shocked, there's a not pleased, there's a thinking, and there's a happy on this picture. Now, all of these could be interpreted a little bit differently too, right? So I don't know if any of you know someone who is taking a medication like an antidepressant, and oftentimes they just will have a very flat affect, it's said. So that called flat affect. So that expression feels not easy to read many times. So many medications will do this. And then there are many people who have trained themselves to not express. They don't want to let someone know what their emotions are possibly revealing. So they will hold back their emotions. But when infants are learning, this is how they're learning. They're looking at the faces, and you can see that when you go up to a little baby and you're smiling and cooing and giggling with them, they also giggle and they smile, and you can see that their feelings are happy. But if you go over to the infant and you're very angry, you'll see that even the infant will start holding back and looking not very pleased. And this is very important for us to know that this is how early kids are learning about emotions, and that's where our emotions have started. Then that's leading to our language. So remember, thoughts, we're thinking about how we're feeling, then we speak the words, and then we do the actions. And this is our communication. And you know that even nonverbal actions are based on some thoughts and emotions. So taking a moment to think allows us to pick the words that we can choose to think, to speak, or to write. So remember that when we're writing, we actually do think a little bit about, hi, how am I going to write this, right? So we think a little bit, so we have a little bit of space to think. Now with texting, I think a lot of times people text very quickly. So they're very eager to make sure they get that text out. And sometimes they don't take that moment to think about what they're going to write before they write it. In terms of, as soon as you have a feeling, if you can become aware of the feeling, taking that moment to think about, I'm feeling this way, before you express something is going to be very, very useful personally and professionally. So are you aware of your words before you speak or write? And you'll know the people who just blast off an email or blast off words when they're not happy or they are upset. And you can tell that they haven't even thought about what they're going to say. So even in this moment, they just blare that message out to a person, and a person is really shocked about, wow, I can't believe they said that to me. Or I can't believe they wrote that to me. And you know that in texting, we don't even get to get the tone of the voice, right? So we don't know how they're thinking when they say something too. So that's always been a little bit of a concern for people with communication. Of course, you can always leave voice messages, and that gives a little bit more tone. But are you aware of your words before you speak or you write? This may benefit from some mindful attention. So you can see, even at the beginning, when I took that deep cleansing breath, oftentimes it only takes that one breath to just center yourself and think about what you're going to speak or write. Okay, so I would encourage that for everyone. Now, intention and tone matters in our communication too. So when we're thinking about our intention and our tone, the words you speak become the house you live in. And this is a famous quote by Hafiz. And I love this quotation because the words you speak, even in a rushed moment, are going to be remembered both by yourself and the person you're speaking with or to. So remember that it really matters, the words you speak. So a lot of times you can do a lot of thinking if I don't like this person and I don't want to speak very kindly with them. But if you speak the words, it leaves an impression. And even if you take those words back, you say, sorry, I said that, you know that there is something that's shifted in the communication or the future communication you will have with that person. So that's very important. What is one very easy thing to do if you can take the time to do this is think of the 5 W's. So who are you speaking to? You know that if you're speaking to your parent, you probably will speak a little bit different than if you're speaking with your best friend. You would even speak a little bit different to your sibling than your parent. Now, you would likely speak very differently to someone that is interviewing you because you will be very cautious about your tone and your intention. Why do I want to say what I want to say? What is it that you want to say? Do you need to say something that I need something from you? Do you need something in terms of I want to tell you this? I have to let you know how good I've done my career and I want to make sure that you know that I deserve this job. That's a different what. If you're telling your parent, I need a new iBox, I need a new iPhone, I need a new computer, I need a new book, I need a new course, I need a new room, I need new color in my room, whatever it is. Perhaps you're telling a spouse that I need this from you, I need you to communicate with me better. Where you're speaking makes a difference in terms of your intention and tone. So you can imagine if you're speaking at home, you might use a different volume than what you might speak at in the library or at a funeral, right? So you might be a little bit softer at a funeral and you might be a little louder at a party, right? So where you're speaking will make a difference in terms of your intention and your tone. When are you speaking? A lot of people are softer speakers in the morning and louder at night. Now, maybe someone is not a morning person and someone wakes them up and they could be quite loud. So remember that when you're speaking matters too, and then why you're speaking. What's the purpose of your speaking? Again, oftentimes when people need something out of someone, they'll be much kinder. Their tone is kind, their intention is, I need something out of this person. And it's a very gentle communication. Well, if you're speaking because you're really upset with someone, oh, it's a little bit more firm, isn't it? The intention is I got to make sure that you know that I'm not happy with you. And your tone will be a little bit stronger. I thought I'd put this little cartoon up so we can see how some communication can happen. This woman is telling this man, we've been fighting a lot lately. We've got to find out why. We need to find out what we need each other to hear, what it is we're not hearing. And then he says, that sounds like a lot of work. Can't I just blame you? And you got to recognize that so often people do not want to take the time to actually understand or listen to each other. And it's so much easier to say, you made me mad. You make me feel not good. You make me so unhappy, right? So all of those sorts of things. You did this to me. You didn't do that. All of that. And it's so easy in that stage to be in a blaming space rather than how can I understand what you need out of me? Or am I delivering what you need out of me? And can I share with you what I need out of you? So that's a different way to communicate. And again, in interviews, people might be quite prepared for these things because they spent the time to actually know what they need from the job that they are trying to apply for. And sometimes we know what we need when we're asking for something from family, but watch our tone, right? There's a reason that we have control over these things, and it's a good reason to take a moment to think about how you're speaking. Again, I come back to words matter, and this is practice time. I want to make sure that you know that it actually makes a difference as the actual words that you're using. So if you think about in infancy, we're already understanding feelings without understanding words. We're already putting together what people are saying to us. So whether to us or to anyone else, by the way, right? So if in the house, someone is saying, this makes me so angry, that infant even is understanding what angry means. They know what it feels like, right? It just doesn't feel so good. As we grow up, we hold on to that initial memory, right? That very primitive memory that we have of, oh, I know what angry feels like. And even if it wasn't directed to them, they will remember the feeling of it. So I'd like you to practice with me about how you can change how you speak. Because remember, now we're trying to train ourselves to change our emotions by the words that we're speaking, right? So we're working backwards, that instead of just reacting because we're emotional and then we say the word that we're familiar with, we actually take a moment to think about what word are we going to use, because this is my emotion. This is the emotion I'm going to allow myself to feel. So let's say someone says, I hate that instructor. I'll get you to think about it for a moment. What would be a better way to say this if you're thinking words are important? You could say, I really don't like that instructor. And you might say, wow, well, that sounds really mild. I want to say hate. Now remember, the brain remembers how hate feels, and hate does not feel good. Don't like that instructor. Now remember, tone matters. You can say a strong tone. I really don't like that instructor. A very different awareness that you know that what you're saying is you really don't like that instructor. And you're just training your brain to not feel the emotion that's associated with that word that you are avoiding using. The other thing you could say is, my dad is a jerk. So a lot of people say this, and people can use various words here, of course, and not such a useful energy to feel, because maybe you've heard that word from a friend or a non-friend, or a friend of the family, or a relative, or someone you just met on the street. You've heard this word before. You've heard many other words too. So how do you change this? My dad's behavior is not kind, or not gentle, or not supportive, right? These are much gentler words for our own brain. Remember that whatever we are speaking first goes through our own system. So we're going to feel the energy of that word before it gets out to the person we're speaking with. So remember that, again, where you're speaking will matter, but you always carry your own mind with you, right? So you always know what you're thinking before you speak, if you can take that moment to think. Someone else will say, this is so tough or difficult. You might say it at work, you might say it at school, you might say it at home, and it makes me mad, right? So again, we come back to words that we've probably learned from around us without even understanding, and we remember the emotion that is connected with that word. That emotion leads to more thought, leads to health concerns even, that our body starts picking up the energies that are associated with these words, and we feel not so well. So we can change this to, this is not easy. This makes me reactive. This makes me less calm, right? Again, this takes some mindful attention to pay attention to, what am I going to speak and why? Knowing your whys, I need to help myself, even though I need to express myself, is very important. What else do we have? Positive psychology. So some of you might be familiar with the term positive psychology, and many people would think, well, that's what we're doing, right? Isn't that what we're doing? We're changing all of our words into positive words, and so that must be positive psychology. And I want to make sure you know that with positive psychology, the focus is on positive emotions and personal strengths. So in positive psychology, I can say, I feel so good, and this makes me feel good. Now, you know that when someone is looking at you with kind of no happy expression on their face, maybe they even put on what we'll call a fake smile, and they say, this makes me feel so good. I'm so happy. You can tell they're not really happy. It's not genuine emotion coming with that, right? So this is different than positive psychology. With thinking this way about, what words am I going to say? And why is it? Because I want to feel different. You want to feel the emotion that you're speaking from. This makes me feel not good, right? So you can feel that it's not good, but the good will always remind the brain about what good feels like. It's not because you're just faking feeling good. I wanted to make sure that you know that what I'm talking about is more related to what's called emotional intelligence, and you might have heard this term too. This is also known as the emotional quotient. It's the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, and decrease or manage or diffuse conflict, right? So this is such an important thing, that you're understanding your own emotions before you're expressing. That is emotional intelligence. And as you can tell, if you're understanding your own emotions, you will probably likely take time to understand another person's emotions too when they say something. Even if they reactively say something, you might not react back because you can understand, I think this is what they're feeling right now. And it's because this happened. And you don't have to react. You don't have to match their energy, right? If you are aware enough to not match the energy that's not good, that's being spoken to you or written to you or said to you, or that you hear about, you will change the vibrational energy that you are working from. And you will see that even in a house that is full of loud talking and not kind talking, if you decide to stay in a very calm space and not react and speak from a space that is kind, you will notice that you will dissolve some of those other energies which are not happy, right? So this is very important that if you can mindfully do this, you'll see the results, whether with friends, whether with relationships, whether in families, you will notice this difference. So this quote cartoon that I wanted to share with you, I wanted you to enjoy too. So there's a man sitting on this couch speaking to this woman, and he says, "How should I know what I'm thinking? I'm not a mind reader." So I love this because you can see what he's saying, right? It would only take his own mind to read his own mind, right? So this is the mindful attention to, of course, you can know what you're thinking. You don't have to be a mind reader for someone else. You just have to be able to read your own mind, right? And yes, this takes the mindful attention. I wanted to make sure that you know that emotional intelligence, and I think you might have some other lectures that you might have listened to about emotional intelligence. This helps to create healthy communication. Healthy communication skills promote cooperation, understanding, and fuels positive interaction in home and in workplaces. I want you to make sure that you know that many companies today now test applicants using various questions that test the applicant's EI. So literally, you know that sometimes you go into a job situation and you are forced to do a test before you can actually have the interview. And that test often is testing your emotional intelligence. So it's your EI. And they are noticing, the studies are showing that companies profit from the teamwork and the creative process that comes from such employees. So when people have high EI scores, this is when these are the companies that are wanting these sorts of people. So if you can work on building up this strength in yourself, you will help yourself both in your personal life and your professional life. And again, you will create stronger teams and more creativity. This does take the study and the application of this to truly acquire. And you know that with many courses, you can learn about a lot of information, but information is nothing until you're applying it and using it regularly. And then just like anything else, this is like building a muscle within our own minds that we're learning something completely different. Without practice, you won't know it. You might know the words, you'll know the right words to say, but you won't show the expression through your emotion. And that is understood. And yes, these tests do actually pick these things up. So I would really encourage you to build this skill. I want you to see this cartoon that I put out, or this picture that I put up. I don't know if you can read the details, but this first monkey, and you know, we're all kind of like monkeys, right? We are amusing this way that if we really look at how people are communicating and whether they're speaking it or not, these are the things that many people are thinking. So this very first picture, this first monkey says, "I don't understand your argument." The second monkey says, "I don't see the point of your argument." And the third monkey says, "I'm already doing self-reflection." So if you can tell, this first one who says, "I don't understand your argument," you can see that this monkey is not even listening, right? So this is often what happens is someone saying, "I don't understand," and you can tell they haven't even heard you. And yet they're saying, "I don't understand what you're saying," right? So you know that they're not listening. The next person is, or monkey, is saying, "I don't see the point of your argument or in your argument." And you can see that this monkey doesn't want to see. I won't look at it, your perspective. I will not look at it from your eyes because I'm just going to block my own, right? So I don't see anything. So even they're looking at you and you can tell that they're not understanding what you're trying to express because they're really not looking, right? They're looking, but not looking with depth, right? Not trying to understand. They're just trying to talk or judge, right? So all of us can do these things, right? That sometimes we're looking and not looking, not really seeing the depth of what's being expressed. The third monkey is saying that he's already doing self-reflection. And this, of course, is what I would encourage. This is what would be mindful attention. When you're doing self-reflection is, wow, this person said this. How am I going to respond, right? How can I respond in a kind and considerate way? How can I respond in a way that's compassionate or empathetic? And this sounds easy, right? Or maybe it doesn't. You will notice that depending on the circumstance you're in, you will be more mindful than other circumstances. So you can imagine again, at an interview, you might be really interested in wanting that the interviewer thinks well of you. I wonder what they would say if I said this. So we go through a moment of, I better let them know this. I better say this. You might even take a moment for a breath in an interview. These days, they're not looking for, this efficient response, right? It's not like, well, what's the first thing they say? This isn't like that, right? They want to see that you've got a mindful attention. So they give the time for you to reflect for a moment to think, how would I handle this, right? So when you're given that question of what would you do in this situation, you get a moment to just stop and think. Now you come home and says, what? So your wife says, or your partner says, or your parent says, why haven't you done this? Oftentimes we won't take that moment to just take a breath and say, I meant to do that. I didn't realize I forgot, right? That sort of idea. That's a very different way than, well, I wasn't home all day. But what is it that people will more naturally go into is that reactive space, right? The reactive space is, well, I wasn't there. And sometimes people just use avoidance in communication. And you might have experienced this too, that again, we could say almost all three of these things, that they're not listening, they're not seeing, and they're not speaking. And if we were to look at styles of communication from different methods, there's one style of communication which is called control talk. And did you know that not speaking with someone is the strongest form of control talk? So another control talk, you might it makes sense to think of someone who's aggressive, yelling. That's a control talk. But did you know that not speaking is the strongest form of control talk? So if you decide, and you might have gone through this with someone who's not happy with you and you feel like you've done something not right, you might notice they're not speaking with you. And boy, that doesn't feel comfortable, does it? So it can happen right within your own home. You're not speaking with each other. Or it could happen at work. It could happen with a friend that you used to speak with regularly. And suddenly they don't call anymore. They don't write anymore. They're not speaking anymore. And these days, you might have heard of all sorts of things in relationships. You might have heard of the term ghosting. In the past, we used to term this passive aggressive energy. And if you look at it today, if we just think of it as not speaking being the strongest form of control in communication, I'd like you to know that if you are using this style, it's not fair, right? The reason that is not a fair way to communicate is because it doesn't allow communication, right? It blocks communication. It doesn't allow someone to say, how are you feeling? Even if they say it, the person might just say, fine, right? So I'm sure we've all experienced this from a parent sometime, right? And if you haven't, then I'm happy for you. But I will tell you that probably our earliest memories would have happened in a time where someone is not happy with us and they're just not speaking with us. Sometimes they won't look at us. Sometimes they won't communicate with us in any way, right? Sometimes they communicate loudly, right? So there's different styles of communication, but believe it or not, someone who's communicating loudly is at least opening a door for communication. Someone who is not communicating at all is not opening that door for communication. So I'd like you to watch your own pattern and see if you are falling into that sort of style. And then see also if you actually take a moment to reflect before you respond to someone. Most people talk to talk. They don't talk or communicate to understand or to connect with people, right? And I would encourage you to take that time to connect with people by actually being mindfully aware of what are you going to speak? What has the other person spoken? You might have also noticed people that you are saying something and they're already thinking about the next thing they're going to say to you. So they're not really listening what you're saying. to what you're saying, but they are planning the next thing they're going to tell you. Oh, yeah, and this happened to me, and this happened to me, and that happened to me, and I went here, I didn't do this, I'm so upset about this. And you wanted to share what you went through in your day, and they actually got together with you because they wanted to see how you're doing. How many times have we gone through these sorts of experiences? Someone is getting in touch because they want to know how you're doing. And then you get together and they tell you all about how they're doing, and you're the polite listener. Make sure that you're understanding that even in that time, you can find a moment to express that, hey, you know what? I had something to tell you. I want to make sure you know something. That's a really easy way to make sure that you're mindfully aware that even if that person is lost in their own thoughts and sharing, they can stop if they're just reminded, right? Gently, kindly, lovingly. And that's what I would encourage for all of our communication, that we're paying attention. So, communication matters. I wanted to make sure that I finish with this awareness for all of you that, again, with family, with friends, with bosses, and coworkers, first understand and work through the emotions. Then work to modify your communication style through learning and practicing EI. Now, I am making sure that we're covering all these people, right? Because no matter who you meet, communication matters. You might see that I've got a YouTube channel, and it has a lot of tips for our day to day life experiences just under my name. And you can look at it and see if it's useful to you, because you'll find lots of different tips of how to work through daily life experiences. I want you to know that, again, how you communicate is or can be the same everywhere you go. You might notice that someone speaks really kindly to the friends, the neighbors, anyone else, coworkers, and yet right at home they're not speaking so kindly. And it's interesting that unless we have a mindful attention of, I want to be the best of me in every situation, it doesn't become a habit. Then even the family member who is experiencing the not kind communication at home wonders, I've seen them speak so nicely to everyone else, but how come at home they don't speak this way? And it would be because the person is not being mindfully attentive to, this is how I want to communicate wherever I go. So today, if you are thinking about how are you communicating, please pay attention to, is it different when you are speaking at work or speaking at school or speaking with your friends, and different with how you speak at home? Now, many people will say, well, people at home speak to me kindly, so I can speak kindly, but people at work are so not kind. They're so not easy to work with. And so that brings out my reactions there. And it's always on a deadline, and I don't like that, or my teachers don't give me enough attention and I want to learn this information, but they just don't have time for me. So then that makes me not happy. If you are matching, no matter where, inside your home or at work or in classrooms or out at a mall, even on your own, anywhere you go, how you communicate becomes your signature, right? It becomes the house you live in. Like that quotation I showed you at the beginning. It is everywhere you go that you carry yourself. If the people around you change who you are yourself, it's not useful, first of all, to yourself, then to the people around you. So if you can pay attention to, who am I in every moment and who do I want to be? Maybe you feel like, I'm more confident. So when I'm confident, I speak louder. And that's okay. Speak louder. You can still speak kindly, right? So remember, you will be heard better by others when you are speaking with kindness and compassion. Speak as loud as you want if you choose to, maybe not in a library or at a funeral, but at the same time, recognize that it matters and it should not change your own best of you based on the people that are around you. It's not a justification. You could probably understand that if someone is mad at someone or not happy with someone else, and then they become not happy at you or with you because they're unhappy with someone else, it's not fair, right? It's not a good feeling. And when you're on the receiving end of that, we know that very well. When we are on the giving end, oftentimes we don't think about it for long enough to recognize what we're doing. So I would love for you to take the time to recognize what you're doing. This could be just some quiet reflection time every morning of, Who do I want to be? These are the situations I'm going to be going through. And what do I want to make sure that I'm representing? I'm representing me, right? Everywhere I go. So it doesn't matter if you're going to the grocery store and it's how you speak to the clerk there, or you're speaking to your parent, right? That it's all with that kind compassion. And it also comes from trying to understand, where is the other person at? Because a lot of people don't speak about how they feel, right? But we can feel it. They don't feel happy. When people are less than happy, I'll use the word angry, not pleased with something, louder, you can usually tell something has happened. But many people will go into a defensive, I must have done something not right. And that's why this person is this way. And if we take things personally that way, and sometimes it might be true, it still doesn't help, right? It's the whole awareness of, there's a lot that has happened for this person. Something has hit a nerve for that person. I don't need to let it hit a nerve for me. I want to be this person. And that's what I would encourage you, that again, if you can take that one cleansing breath before you make a response with anyone, or if you can dig in and find your compassion or empathy for the person that you're speaking with without having to know their whole life situation. The reason I'm planting that seed too is you can understand majority of people around you don't know your whole life situation. And sometimes they say something off the cuff, which really doesn't feel good. And you could understand they don't know what I've gone through and they're saying this like this. And it makes me so not happy that I don't want to tell them what happened to me. But that really did not feel good. Then do you do the same thing to someone else? That I don't need to know their life situation to know that they're not feeling good. So now how I communicate with them matters, right? It matters that I want to make sure that I'm not adding more not good feelings to this person who's already not feeling good. So again, understanding and working through your emotions, then working to modify your communication style. Remember your intention. Why am I saying this? And what is my tone? Matters the most. I would love to end this presentation, this webinar, with telling you to speak your truth kindly and compassionately, and get ready for success ahead, because it's felt energetically around you. You will feel it energetically within you. It will bring more energy and happiness and joy to your day-to-day experience. And at the very least, it's going to bring peace because you're being who you choose to be. I have seen many more clients that are feeling regrets over saying or doing something that they wish they didn't, than those that are feeling regrets for being the person that they wanted to be and speaking the way that they wanted to speak with the language that made them proud to look back on, this is who I am, right? That's where I'll leave you with today. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope that if you have any questions, you will reach out to me. I think that there is some time after this presentation for literally answering any questions if you have any. And if you do, I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was beautiful listening to you.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm very glad. Thank you for inviting me.
Ma'am, one of our students has asked a question. If
Yeah.
someone is not interested in our talk,
Yes.
okay, then how can we influence him or her by through communication?
Oftentimes, when someone is not interested in our talk, we know, or you might know, that ego is often in the way, right? So, from the other person who's not interested, there's a little bit of ego there, right? That I already know this information, and I don't care about this information. So that comes from the higher than perspective. If you look at ego, it's either that person feels better than another person or feels less than another person. So when someone doesn't want to hear, they're coming from one of those perspectives. Then the person who's speaking, you want to understand that that person would also be coming from ego perspective. So let's say this person doesn't want to hear what I want to say, and this would be so useful. This, I know that this could help them. That comes from ego. I know this will help them. I'm wiser. I'm better than what they know, right? And it might be truth, but it doesn't help, right? So if you can hear the person and say that, yeah, I know that they're not listening, and be in the space of, I'm okay. They don't need to hear me. I'm going to be in this really good space. Maybe I'll write a little note to just make sure that the message gets across. Maybe I'll still speak, even though they're not really listening. A little bit seeps in, a little bit seeps in. But as long as the goal for the speaker isn't this will be better for them, which is ego, it will be heard in a different way. You can always change how you express too. It's, hey, you know what? I know you might not use this, but I learned this, that sort of idea, right? So it's the way that you're expressing it too. When you also express something you want to say is, why won't you listen to me? It's not heard as well, right? It's different styles that we communicate, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So we should express ourselves. We should try to express ourselves, right?
We should. Yeah. Should. Should is such a loaded word, right? I think many of us would like to express ourselves, and it's nice to express ourselves. I don't believe that there are any shoulds except for what we feel is really important. So if I feel that something needs to be expressed, then I should, for me, not for the other person, for me, right? But oftentimes we think, I should tell that person that they're not being kind, right? Which is a bit of judgmental tone in there, right? Which again, we can, and recognizing that it's because I feel like saying it, I feel like this would be good for me to say to get off my chest in a kind way, right?
Every word in the statement matters, I think. We should think twice before speaking.
Right? And so often we're rushed too, right? So in that rush, it's we speak in a way that we're not paying attention, right?
Yes, may the work that we want to do, it may fail, I think, because of communication.
Yes, you look at families when people are rushed of doing this, and we just tell, do this, do this, do that. And then when we see the person that's not happy, we wonder why, right? I just asked you to do this, but it's how you asked, right?
What are the features of effective communication according to you?
What are the details of effective
What are
communication?
the features? Features.
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 Features of effective communication. I would say speaking kindly and compassionately would be one feature. Listening is just as important, right? So, a lot of times when we are communicating, we forget it's a two-way street, right? And we're often taught that way early on, right? The parent knows best, and then the child is supposed to listen. So, oftentimes people will grow up thinking either I just have to listen so I can't speak, and or I've never been able to speak, so now I have to speak a lot, right? So those two things where we need both. I would say those are the two key details. It's the ability to speak and willingness to speak kindly and compassionately, and the willingness and ability to listen from the same energy, kindly and compassionately, right? Not the, well, you can speak your mind, but I know I'm right, right? That's not a kind and compassionate place. It's, can I understand what you're trying to share with me? To come from that place. Even if you're not trying to understand me, can I help you understand what I heard you just say? Would be a way to communicate, right? That I'm understanding this is what you said. Is that right? Is that what you mean? Right? Now, this is what I feel about this. That's a beautiful way to communicate, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, ma'am. You
Yeah.
told about listening. Also, listening is one of the factor which affects communication skill. So,
Yeah.
is listening important or is speaker is important?
Both.
Both.
Both
if
are equally
if there
important.
is a good speaker, then good listener is also necessary, right?
Very important. And you know what's interesting is oftentimes
Yes.
even the speaker is not listening to themselves, right? And that's important too, right? How is that heard? Did I say that kindly? Because sometimes we just speak, right? We mean it from a good space, but we speak and we're not even hearing how we're speaking. And we can catch ourselves, right? If we're really listening, both to the other side and ourselves.
Okay, so both is important, right? Good speaker and
Very,
listener.
both very important for sure. Yes.
Yes. Can you give some ideas so that it might help students and faculty to modify the communication skills, ma'am?
Yes. I would say students and faculty are very, very important. Again, both work hand in hand in a school, right? So very, very important. I think what's really important these days is this compassion towards each other. And I think there's a lot more teachers today that are compassionate. It could be because of COVID times that we are compassionate, that there's a lot more studying at home now than there used to be. There's less classroom interaction. So there's a little bit more compassion that's naturally been raised this way. But also recognizing that different students are learning in different ways. Really important for instructors to be available, to have communication, and then listening, right? Not just I'm teaching you. So now that I'm in an instructor role, I'm teaching you is true, but not necessarily kind. It's not as kind as saying, how can I help you, right? It's a very different space. It's less ego space, right? Then the student can come in with such a not happy expression of, you don't teach well, I don't understand anything you say, this doesn't make sense, you speak too fast, I don't like the information, I don't want to take this course, all of these different things. That's not a really kind of space to speak from too, right? So if you're thinking as a student that I'm speaking to an instructor who's made it their career to teach me and other students this, and I'm going in to tell them that I don't like it, you can say, I'm not finding this course very easy for me. I'm not finding it easy to understand what you mean. Can I have some extra time to understand? Is there a different way for me to understand? That's a very humble way to approach, right? Same from the instructor and faculty side is, is everyone understanding everything? Is everyone feeling up to date with what we have covered so far? And again, we're all in such a rush, and teachers and faculty are under this pressure of, in this much time, this should be taught. So the goal is, I have to finish teaching this so that they can answer this final exam. They can understand how they're answering. But often the time is not taken to check in with students of, how are you feeling? Is this making sense to you? And sometimes when it's said, it's not really waiting for the response. Right? So you might see students looking up in the air or not paying attention, and you take it as, yeah, they're on track, right? But checking in to really understand, are you guys understanding this? And then paying attention to, okay, so it's going too fast. So how can we modify this? How can we make sure that you're understanding it in a different way, right? That sort of idea. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Good. I'm glad.
What does matter in society, ma'am? Money or communication?
Oh, what a big question, Vishali. That's hilarious. Um, I think good communication will bring money. I will tell you that. Um, Again, it's such a personal journey. I think you might find on my YouTube channel, by the way, that I'm very much into spirituality. And so it's a very interesting question that you've asked me specifically today. But I will definitely say a lot of people think that if they move into more spiritual and really kind places, it doesn't bring money. And that's not true. And it's so interesting that money doesn't become the prime focus. For ego, money might be a prime focus, that I need to make this much money. I need to buy this size house. I need to get this car. I need to live in this location. That's ego direction of money. That's a motivator to get to that place. Whereas if you're working from inspiration, where you're actually inspired to be the best you are, you'll notice money comes. Money comes. So in that, it's that trusting that, what, as I do my best, the universe also gives back just as nicely. So in that way, it can be very important. We need money even for our basic day-to-day life experience, right? But both are important. But I will say communication will bring you money. If you can't communicate to your employer, you're not going to make as good of a wage or a salary as another person. If you can't communicate that you need a raise, right, you will not make as much money. If you cannot communicate that this is what I do well, and employers, teachers, instructors, family all notice when you're doing an awesome job. It might feel to a person that, am I even being noticed? You are. And you will trust in being your best. You will. And then you'll express yourself because you'll be able to communicate, hey, you know what? I did this. And it brings the money.
So it's a round circle, I think.
It is. It all goes together. I think a lot of these people felt that if I pursue money, it's not being the best person. So again, oftentimes with whether we think spirituality or religiousness, people would say, don't pursue money. But it's because it's related to ego. It's not that money itself is not good. We all know that a lot of people who can make a lot of money can help other people too, and many do. And then there are people who will say hoard that money, and oftentimes that changes. That's how life is, right? That, oh, something comes, something goes, right? That's how the life experience is. But if you keep your emotions and your communication at an even keel, you will find you'll have so much joy and the money comes. So it's always enough. It's always enough. You'll find that, again, my direction would be don't pursue the money, although a lot of times that gives people that drive and motivation. But if you know that even communication it will bring you money, let it be. The drive and communication, drive to have fantastic communication to make your money, that's fine. But your communication will matter. If you even get to a place where you're making a lot of money and you start communicating poorly, let me tell you, you won't hold on to that money or you will lose your job, right? You can imagine that if you start communicating with your boss not kindly, yeah, don't expect to keep that job, right? So I think we all kind of know that, right? So it matters and it is full circle.
Ma'am, is education or experience important in communication?
How important is experience?
Education or experience?
Education or experience?
Yes.
Buddy, good question. I would say both, but I will say how you apply. So there are people who are not very educated, and this, just so you know, has changed. My perspective has actually changed from years ago. In the past, I'd always say that education is most important. Having a lot of education and a lot of knowledge base does not compare to experience based. So there are people who don't have great education, great credentials, major degrees, who I'm sure many people have heard of these people who have gone very far. And whether we think in life success, whether we think in financial success, there's a lot of people that have had no education and have done fantastic. Yet, I do believe that having the education does give just an extra bit of confidence to an individual. So, with the education and the experience, I find it's the best combination. If someone was supposed to just do education, I don't think education will help because the experience is needed in terms of our life experience. If someone had just experience, the education would help, right? That sort of idea that the education really does help. There's no way around it that no matter what, I find education helps. Now, does that mean that you have degrees? Does that mean that you've done a lot of reading? It could be either. Is it life experience that is in itself an education? It is. Depends on how much you're learning every step of the way, right? And yeah, you can learn from either, but I do find I know I have a bias towards education, but I also have a bias of life experience. I believe that both really matter. And I think no matter what, we are being educated through life. So, again, if someone is in a situation that, for example, could not afford higher education, please don't look down on them because they might be reading more books than anyone who's going through a higher education formally. So, yeah, there's a lot of value to both, and people are educated through different ways. Does that make sense too?
And the last one, ma'am,
Yes.
how can we develop? You talked about positive thinking, right, in your
Yeah.
presentation. How can we
Yeah.
develop our positive thinking?
This is a practice. It's like a muscle that you build, actually. So it's an internal muscle. Positive thinking, again, different than, so positive psychology was one thing, and then emotional intelligence was another, right? But positive, it's about literally saying, okay, this is the not good thing that's going on. What's the positive in this time? So if you start training yourself, so let's say I don't like this course. This course is really not interesting for me. But you know what? I love coming to school, or I love speaking with my best friend who also goes to that class, or I love knowing that this course is almost over, whichever way you look at it. There's going to be two parts to each thing. So each thing that is not so good that's happening in our lives, there's something good in it too. But let's say there's absolutely nothing good you can think about. Let's say it's a person you're speaking with. They're always not happy. They're always upset, and this is not good. I'm not in a positive space when I'm around this person. Think about what else is positive in your life. Today's a sunny day, for example. It could be nothing related to that person, but you're getting yourself into the emotion of it, right? That feeling that I feel good before my thoughts come. So this particular space, this is what I feel good about right here in this moment. I'm breathing the air. That's what that breath is all about, right? I can have a deep breath of fresh air, right? Or maybe you're sitting inside. I can still breathe. I can make my favorite cup of tea, whichever it is. You can find something positive in the moment. But this takes a mindful attention, because when the mind is in a space of, I'm not happy about this, it wants to stick to that, because the mind has a tendency of wanting to work through the things that are not right rather than appreciate the things that really are right. And there's always both going on at every moment.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very nice listening to you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me again.
And lastly, this webinar taught me that always speak your truth with compassion, right?
Yes, always
Strong
speak your truth with
confidence.
compassion. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Thank you
definitely.
so much, ma'am, for joining this webinar.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank the HOD of our department, Mr. Hemal Patel, sir, the HRI of our institute, Professor Chatin Vaidya, sir, the academic director, Dr. Mahesh Bhatt, sir, and president of our university, Dr. Devanshu Patel, sir, for motivating and supporting us continuously. Last but not the least, I would like to thank you all the participants who assembled here today for this webinar. Thank you, ma'am, for joining.
Thank you all.
It
Namaste.
was very nice listening to you.
Thank you. It was nice to share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.